Hi folks, it's Switchback. Summer is around the corner, which means hot weather, and most of us want to get outside during the summer. So how can you do so safely? I'll include a list of resources down in the description below. When you're thinking about the heat, there are also other things you need to think about, like the humidity and how that impacts the heat index. You also need to think about age. The very young and the very old have a harder time acclimating and adapting, and the factors in the body don't work the same way to regulate temperature, what you are used to. So if you're coming from a coastal town where it's not real hot and you're going somewhere where, in the desert or something where it's really hot, then, that's different than versus somebody who's used to that kind of weather. There's also, what kind of heat training you can do, and I'll go into that shortly here. The elevation and the latitude make a difference. That makes you, that much less atmosphere to protect you, that much closer to the sun, that much closer to the equator, etc. And any medications or health conditions that you have that make you more susceptible to UV or to heat. Also be cautious when it comes to taking your pets out in the heat, and avoid, of course, extremes. Know your pet and avoid taking them out if there's any risk. I have this whole series of videos here about hiking and camping with your dog. I'll put some links about heat acclimatization, say that fast, down in the description below. But it really can make a big difference for you if you are going somewhere where it's hot. Whatever you do, don't push yourself to the point of heat exhaustion. That will just set you back. You'll want to get ideally at least 2 weeks of training in ahead of time. And you're going to want to start slow and start easy and slowly progress your way up to the kind of heat, the kind of intensity of what you're going to be doing. Work your way to longer sessions and stay well hydrated, including using electrolytes while you're training. Know when it's time to throw in the towel on your plans for a trip. If it's going to be too hot to enjoy yourself or too hot to sleep, it's not going to be fun. Or even worse, you could end up injured or again, even worse. Especially when safety is concerned, it is always okay to pivot, reschedule, or cancel a trip. Next topic is some strategies for while you're out enjoying the outdoors, but it's also hot. Plan on hiking earlier in the day before it gets too hot. What time it gets hot depends on, of course, where you are. Some places it says, avoid the sun between 10 and 4. My own experience, I find it gets hotter a little bit later, although the UV I know is most intense during that time. But the heat sometimes will start a little bit later and last a little later. So the more of your hiking you can do early in the day, the better. Look for routes that offer some shade and take frequent breaks in that shade. Plan on your trip going slower than your normal hiking pace. Use any water sources along the way to cool off, whether it's putting your whole body in or putting in your shirt or your hat or a buff, something like that to keep you nice and cool. Look for a place that you can go swimming, because certainly swimming is a good way to cool yourself down, and it's a lot of fun. If you use an inflatable sleeping pad, you can even use that as a floaty. Choose your sleep system based on the anticipated temperatures, and look for shaded areas to set up your shelter, whether it's a tent or a hammock or tarp or whatever you use. Most of us know that a tent that's been sitting in the sun all day is like a little sauna, so not a lot of fun when it's already hot outside. These are the kind of trips where I personally like to leave my rain fly at home and just sleep in the mesh so that I still have protection from all these mosquitoes and other bugs, but I can still enjoy a breeze. Carry a satellite communicator so that you can let loved ones back home know that you are doing okay with the heat, and to call for help in case you're not. Drink before you're thirsty, and know that caffeine and alcohol will dehydrate you faster, so avoid them when it's hot out. Don't forget to also make sure that you're drinking electrolytes. My personal favorite are Scratch Labs, and I'll put a link up here for those. And down there. Most people have less of an appetite when it's hot out, and so it's still really important that you're eating. So small frequent meals may work better than a few larger ones, and think about foods that are going to be more enjoyable in the heat. You're not going to want to take your soups and heavy, dense foods like that. Also avoid things like chocolate or cheeses that are going to melt in the heat. Any kinds of meats or dairies are going to spoil faster in the heat as well. Look at things like shakes or smoothies that you can make that you shake up, anything that you can cold soak or anything else that doesn't require heat. You can always take a small portable electric fan with you. I'll put some links down in the description of some examples of those. There are ultralight rechargeable options, so if you're going to do it, that might be the way to go. Choose fabrics carefully when you're figuring out what you're going to wear. So you're going to want to look at UPF ratings, avoid anything that's sheer or stretches, because as it stretches, it loses that sun protection. Cotton will retain moisture, which can be fine when it's hot, but it can also make you chafe more. So it's important to know what works for you. Also keep in mind that wet cotton will let in more UV than dry cotton. But ultimately, physical barriers will provide more sun protection than a chemical or any kind of sunscreen will. With that said, make sure that you are taking sunscreen with you and plenty of UV protection. And I have a whole video about sun protection up here. One common thing that can happen to people when they're out in the heat is heat rash. And this looks like small red bumps or pimples on the neck, chest, under the breasts, inside the elbows, or the groin area. And so keep that area dry and use a powder like Gold Bond in order to keep that from happening or to treat it. Next, it's important to talk about heat injury, and this includes heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. So these are going to be the signs and symptoms of that. People can get muscle cramps or spasms. The skin may do a few different things. You may have profuse sweating, you may have cool, clammy skin, or you might have red, dry, hot skin that's not sweating, either, heavy sweating or absence of sweating, either of those, very alarming. A fast pulse that's either weak or strong. Nausea, vomiting, weakness, dizziness, a headache, confusion, slurred speech, or loss of consciousness or passing out. Now, if you or someone in your group has any of these symptoms, you need to stop and take a break in a cool, shaded area. Never give anyone who is unconscious or confused, never put them in water or never give them anything by mouth. But if they're still alert, just lethargic, it's okay to give them some water, some electrolytes by mouth. You're going to want to cover them in cool cloths or wet down their clothes. If they're awake, they can get into water to cool down. Again, don't do that with anyone who's unconscious for the drowning risk. However, if this persists for more than an hour without improving, if they're vomiting, if they lose consciousness, you need to call for help immediately. This is another case where a satellite communicator is so critical to have when you're out on the backcountry. And I have a whole playlist that talks about which ones I like, how to use one, whether or not you need one, what happens when you activate one, and I'll put that right here. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.